Hello and welcome to this very special edition of the Irish Wrestling Podcast. My name is Mark O'Brien, and today I'm joined by somebody incredibly special. They're one of the most sought-after talents in the whole independent wrestling scene. Somebody from Western Australia, now newly migrated over to the States. One of the hottest commodities in all of wrestling. I'm joined by the one and the only Lena Kross. Lena, thank you very much for joining me today.
No, thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to finally get to speak to you.
No, listen, thank you again for coming on and joining us. But listen, you've had somewhat of a meteoric rise. You've been in the space for roughly 8 years, kind of been wrestling on and off, coming from Western Australia. You're now finding yourself probably at the epicenter of a lot of buzz and whatnot. Without going into the detail, how are you finding life at the minute, kind of picking up, starting a new life in America and being one of the most sought after talents in global wrestling currently?
It is, it definitely has its challenges and
Okay.
difficulties,
Yeah.
um, but I can't see myself being anywhere else than where I am right now. It's very exciting. I know, there's so many opportunities that are coming my way,
Yeah.
and I'm definitely where I need to be for those opportunities to come.
Yeah, you definitely are in terms of being kind of the epicenter of where kind of American wrestling television is. But you're not necessarily from there, as your accent might give it away to our American audiences. You're actually from Australia, and at that, you're from Western
Yes,
Australia, kind of around the Perth area.
down
I've
under.
down under, getting on the shrimp and the barbie. I've a lot of. I'm Irish, so half of Ireland are currently living in Australia. I have a lot of friends living
Yep,
specifically in Perth.
yep.
They're having the time of their life. I don't know if they're making any money or doing any work whatsoever, but they seem to be getting pissed every weekend. But you're from a
That
part of on brand.
sounds about
Yeah,
right.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's not a lot to do in Perth, and the weekends are either watching sport or going to the pub.
Okay. Yeah, but I always kind of view Australia as being kind of the sporting capital of the world. And again, for people who are living a goldfish bowl, particularly in America, I have a good American
Hmm.
girlfriend, so I can say that they might think America's the epicenter of the world. But when you look at Australian sport, culture, lifestyle, the amount of sports that they're competing at a world-class level, how they get on the Olympics, even just around how Australians view birthdays, having sunrise swims in certain parts of Sydney and whatnot. It's
Hmm.
an incredibly health conscious and sporting nation. And it's kind of given rise to this now big explosion of wrestling and talents emerging onto the American wrestling scene. How have you found this last 8 years working in the wrestling scene coming from Australia as part of this new explosion of Australian awareness as such?
Yeah, it's like you said, unless you're outside of that fishbowl, um, it's hard to maybe understand what we have to go through. Especially from Australia, we are so isolated.
Mm,
And then again, from Perth, you're isolated even more. Um, so you have to put yourself out there in a lot more ways, investing in yourself initially
mm,
to get the similar or same opportunities that someone from America can get in their back door without ever having to leave their family or friends.
yeah.
So off the bat, there's that difficulty purely because we're located so far away. Um, so starting my career in Perth, I don't think I realized initially
Mm,
because I was just, I was excited to just be learning the
yeah.
craft and art and being able to wrestle. Um, but you reach a certain ceiling where you're kind of stuck with the opportunities you're getting.
Mm,
So you have to leave um, to open doors, essentially. Um, but from Australia and the amount of talent that are there, it's, I think, population wise, is a big factor. And you probably see it in like UK, Europe as well. There's not as many credible companies.
mm,
So you really have to fight for positions.
mhm.
And that sort of pushes you to be better, to do better. Um, and I think that's why there's so many talented Australians in the world are finally recognizing the sort of pool that we have down here or down there.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you look at like any brand of wrestling television at the minute, particularly American wrestling television, the amount of Australian, even New Zealand talents that are basing themselves on television at the highest possible level as well, coming from extremely high level sporting backgrounds. A lot of them translating that over to pro wrestling seem to be almost like a duck to water. But like I said, that you've kind of you have had a tough challenge coming from Western Australia, where you started out with the likes of New Horizon, you've worked in WSW, you've kind of performed at a myriad of different levels across Australia. How did you find that kind of starting out in the west coast of Australia? I assume you're then having to burst onto the east coast, then before you can kind of get yourself overseas to Japan, to Europe, to UK. How did you
Mhm.
find that as a challenge, even within Australia, getting prominence from a smaller city to over the bigger lights, maybe Sydney, Melbourne, whatnot?
Yeah, you definitely, a lot of it is mindset and putting aside, I don't want to say ego, but stepping out of that comfort zone, because
Mm,
Perth is a very, very small pond
yeah.
and you can be a very big fish.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people are scared to step out of that, because even going over east, that's a big pond. And then you become a little fish and you kind of got to start again. And then, even so, if you want to travel worldwide. Um, so I think Perth is years behind the East Coast in
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
So I definitely felt like, yes, I had a great um, start of my career and foundational learning to become a pro
Yeah.
wrestler, but I definitely felt like I was a couple years behind when I
Mm,
did move over to the East Coast, just purely on the establishment side of
mm,
things. Because the reach of, say, Sydney or Melbourne
mm,
is a lot further worldwide compared to the reach Perth has.
yeah.
Um, so even though my skills and
Mm,
capabilities in the ring may have been the same level as someone that I would have started with at the same time, but that outreach
yeah.
and exposure, I was way behind. Um, which you don't realize when you're
Mm,
kind of in that bubble, and you're happily, doing shows and getting reps. But when you want to expand, um, it's definitely noticeable
yeah.
for sure.
I mean, you leverage that incredibly well. So, like off the back of that, then you're getting to travel to Sendai Girls in Japan. You're getting to go travel and compete around
Mm-hmm.
Mexico. I was there fortunate enough last year when you were in Progress in the UK, when you made your debut in the
Yes.
Electric Ballroom. Like, how did you find that sort of as a culture shock leaving Australia or like one part of the world and then going to all these amazing different cultures for various different lengths of times? How did you find that kind of coming from, I suppose, a goldfish bowl in Australia in itself to all these different types of
Mm-hmm.
wrestling around the world?
Yeah, definitely my first tour of Japan
Mm,
wrestling wise,
yeah,
um, was an adjustment.
yeah,
But I was very grateful that I had Millie McKenzie and Nina Samuels with me on that first tour, and they had, or definitely Millie had been there a couple times,
yeah,
so I could kind of go under their wings and have a bit of guidance. I wasn't completely blind,
yeah,
and same thing with that first UK tour, having them guiding me and sort of leading the way definitely helped. Definitely made it a lot easier, less scary. Still a little bit scary, but
yeah.
yeah, their support and guidance definitely helped with the adjustment for sure.
That's pretty. I mean, I guess like anybody kind of commuting or kind of, as I said earlier, like half of Ireland deciding to take over Australia in the minute, particularly
Yeah.
in areas like Perth. So yeah, no, but I mean, like off the back of those travels, you've got to leverage those relationships. You've had matches with the likes of Sadie Gibbs, Miyu Mashita. You've had Billy Starks. Traveled around Japan, facing Team 200 kg and whatnot. What are your particular highlights from that kind of stint, specifically with Japan?
Yeah, so off number one has to be winning the tag
Mm,
belts at the end of last year
yeah,
with Venny. I think that was really special,
yeah,
because for me, how I perceive sort of championship belts, when you look at maybe
mm,
Australian, America, maybe UK. I
Mm,
think it's half is obviously, you do the work, you earn those championships.
yeah.
But others are kind of like, okay, what's going with the storylines? Is this making sense? Maybe we need to give it to this person to then like further along this storyline. Where I feel like in Japan, it's very much credit based,
Mm,
and they're not giving championships away unless they definitely see that you're of
mm,
value to the company and they respect, and um, they want you to have it for a reason. So I think winning those championships was very validating,
mm,
very special in that sense, and just confirming that okay, what
mm.
I'm doing is good.
Yeah.
Because I think we can forget that, especially in this industry when
Mm,
things don't last very long. Things change all the time.
yeah.
You're kind of chasing that next thing because you're not where you want to be, but taking that moment to really recognize how far you've come, and the work that you have put in, winning a championship like that is confirming of that. So that's definitely probably the most special moment for my time in Japan.
Brilliant. I mean, like, I think any walk of life or any kind of type of work you're doing, you want it to kind of be meritocracy based in terms of the amount of effort you're putting in, kind of getting effort reward back and forth. And like as somebody who's done a small bit of wrestling, not very well, but you kind of the subjective nature of wrestling can probably be a bit of a mind fuck to somebody, just in terms of simply
Oh,
just in just
100%.
and again, I'm not saying that as somebody who's performing your level or even like kind of at an international company and whatnot, but just in terms of for you, for example, committing for emigrating, commuting
Mhm.
globally, working out, like diet, lifestyle, additional jobs inside and whatever, and how people who are focused and tunnel visioned and working towards a specific goal don't necessarily have that reward for the efforts you're put in. Like how hard, this is more of an existential question now because we've kind of gone down this rabbit hole now. How hard is it to kind of continue, not continue, but like how hard is it to kind of keep that focus in terms of what your end goal being, in terms of obviously you're in the States now. Ultimately, I imagine, I'm guessing that you'd be looking to get as high a platform as you can, much exposure as you can, or in the best living as you can, working in the professional wrestling. How hard is it to kind of keep that drive as such when you're having to globetrot constantly, like we talked about beforehand, like you're battling jet lag at the minute, and like that's just the nature of somebody whose family lives in one end of the world and you're living in another. Like how hard is that to keep going?
Oh, it can be very hard. I think you have, like you were saying, that reward base when
Mm,
you're putting so much work in, and you get a hint of that satisfaction and reward. You're like, yeah, I love this. This is amazing. But then there's days where you're not getting any of that,
yeah,
and you're not where you want to be.
yeah,
You're still having to put all the same work in, if not more, constantly thinking about how you can evolve and better yourself, better your
mm,
brand. Um, you know, for me as an independent, like free agent, I'm doing
mm,
all of this on my own back. I
mm,
don't have a major company to support that. Um, it can be very, very difficult. But
mm,
at the end of the day, I know what I want. I know that I will get it. I just don't know when I'll get it.
yeah,
So you kind of just got to remind yourself and keep pushing and keep working. But it is difficult.
yeah.
This isn't easy. If it was easy, more people would be doing it. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much goes into it, outside of what they see in the ring,
Even
because
like the
there's
time.
so many areas.
Yeah, I was going to say even the time frame in terms of which you've like kind of been wrestling. So obviously you started in 2017, and you've got this in the middle of that. You've got
Mhm.
a weird period in time where everybody decides to close the doors and not leave the house for 2 to 3 years. Like
Yeah.
where we are in the UK and Ireland, nobody left the house for 2 to 3 years. Like and just nobody did anything.
Hmm.
So like, how does that like again? We're getting on a weird rabbit hole now of questioning, but like, how did that manifest? How difficult was it to keep going at that stage then? Because like you've 2 to 3 years of wrestling, establishing yourself in Western Australia, pivoting over towards Eastern Australia, kind of getting a bit more exposure, then, oh, actually, we're going to stop this for a couple of years. How hard is it that motivation to pick that back up again, following or even during?
Yeah, I think I was quite. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, everyone lost, I think, 2 years
Yeah.
of progression. You know, with the momentum of maybe where I was going. Like I was originally supposed to go to Japan for the first time in 2020. So, 2 years later, full circle, I went to Japan.
Yeah.
So I feel like progression was lost in those 2 years. But I was quite fortunate being in Perth where our premier sort of shut the borders down. We were living a very normal life for most of the 2 years. Like I was going to work, I was wrestling, I was training, I was able to go to the gym, I was able to socialize. My family and a lot of my friends are still in Perth. So within those 2 years, yes, I was secluded to Perth. I couldn't necessarily progress my career on a worldwide scale, but I was still able to do pretty much everything, just in a smaller. And I think, by the time everything opened, I was ready to go. I was, had the fire lit. I was like, okay, I need to get out of Perth.
Yeah.
I need to move. I need to save, and I need to start traveling.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe different to other people's experience.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, motivation was still there, just from a different aspect, I guess.
Okay, well, the rest of us are here in Ireland having to work in our bedrooms and invest in gym equipment in the back garden, and yeah, so
Yep.
that was my experience. We had to live in a 3 kilometer radius. We couldn't talk to anybody within the 3 kilometers, but we could only walk in like a circle. So it's very, very weird.
I
But
think Melbourne and
okay,
Sydney were like that.
okay.
But
Well,
yeah, we were a bit different over on the West Coast.
I can see why one of my best mates is constantly hounding me to go over and visit, but I look at the flight prices and I just can't justify it currently. But
Oh,
soon
it's
enough, maybe.
flight prices. Although they have the direct now from London to Perth.
All right. Okay. Well, I mean, if I was to go that far, it'd still be looking like I need like 2 to 3 weeks and then to get time off work and stuff. So, but
Oh, easy. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
only downfall. If you are going to travel to Australia,
yeah,
you need like 2 weeks minimum
100%,
to be able to really see and experience
100%.
what it has to offer.
But like off the back of all that kind of endeavor and drive, working through, kind of being stuck in the city for a couple of years, not be able to kind of progress as you'd like to have done. Off the back of that, then years later, you're coming back to Australia. Before we touch on your American adventures, you come back to Australia later this year. You're wrestling with probably the top 2 to 3 hottest independent wrestling companies globally, WSW. You're getting to face people who are
Mhm.
featuring on television, American talent such as Ash by Elegance. You got the likes of Hardy Cameron coming back to Australia, who's Hardy Cameron's got global fame at the minute now, and you're having huge
Yeah.
moments with both of them. How fulfilling is that? You're obviously being seen as not just the hotel hero, but like to a degree, the returning conquering hero as well. How fulfilling is that knowing that you're being trusted in spots with these established television acts and that you're on their level, if not going to surpass them or seen as being able to surpass them in the years to come?
Yeah. It's definitely a cool experience, and WSW is
Mm,
one of the best promotions I've ever worked with.
mm,
Adrian looks after all the talent that come in. It's run really, really well.
mm,
They only run once or twice a year.
yeah.
But the fans really appreciate it. The crowds are always, sold out, loud, excited, and having those opportunities to, work with, Ash, work with Matt Cardona,
Hmm.
work with Nick Nemeth, work with Harley Cameron. It's opportunities that are allowing me to learn from
Mm,
people who have so much experience.
yeah.
Um, and just sort of picking their brain and getting feedback and advice, and all of that is helping me get better, but
Mm.
also, it's a great experience. I'm very grateful that I've had those opportunities and I am trusted in those
Yeah.
positions, because there's such a big learning curve,
Yeah.
and really valuable opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. I think even as we touched on earlier, Japan being that kind of meritocracy, American wrestling can also be that kind of that attention span wrestling a bit as well. The more you're in people's awareness in terms of those spots in Matt Cardona, Nick Nemeth and whatnot, that
Yeah,
elevates your awareness, which then brings you to the attention of possibly help in terms of what you experienced the past summer. Like over say kind of tail end of July, just as we kind of pivot into this space now. End of July, a Fightful Select story came out talking about like possibly TNA Wrestling were excited to have you, possibly
yeah,
come, probably sign you up, whatever it was. Again, scoopsters, who knows? I don't know the ins and outs of these things. But then a day or two later, suddenly you're appearing on AEW Collision, and then a day after that, you're appearing on TNA Explosion. Like, before we get into how those things came about, like, what was that whirlwind like from kind of going from independent wrestling, which is his own kind of niche bubble to a degree, to suddenly having this awareness across the Twitter sphere of wrestling people, as I'll call them to be nice. Like suddenly
mhm,
everybody's following you, as even you said yourself, hello to my new followers, and you kind of welcome to day one and
yeah,
whatnot. How was that whole experience, that kind of period from late July through early August?
yeah. Timing. I've learned that this industry is all about timing.
Mm,
Um, And I think it definitely was an advantage for me to have those opportunities within the same week,
yeah,
um, essentially. So I did the TNA tapings. Originally, I think it was like the taping was on the 24th of
okay,
July, but
yeah, yeah,
obviously didn't get released till
yeah,
a couple weeks after. Um, and obviously half that locker room, like I know I've met, Steph Delander's there,
mm,
Indy Hartwell's there, the icon, inspiration are
yeah,
there,
yeah,
Matt Cardona was there, Nick Nemeth, Ash. So like I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of the talent backstage.
yeah,
Um, so it felt very comfortable being in that environment.
yeah,
Um, and again, validating in the sense of that was the first
mm,
opportunity I had with a TV company. Um, how things are run are obviously very different to how they run on the independents.
yeah,
So it was confirming for myself that my peers are here. I know my in ring talent
yeah,
is already at this level.
yeah,
And it's just a matter of getting in front of the right people and
mm,
showing what I already know.
mm,
And, after that week, what a lot of people found out, going from TNA and then having the opportunity on AEW Collision, was 90 seconds. But
yeah,
I made sure that within that 90 seconds, first impressions are very important.
yeah,
So that's what I focused on and made the most of that opportunity.
mm,
And I think that's all we can really do is just
mm,
make the most of the opportunities that kind of we have, and then more doors are going to open. And hopefully
yeah.
that's exactly what has happened. So I'm looking forward to sort of what's next, um, and what's going to happen in the future.
As part of that, what's next? You've obviously rebased yourself in America. How
Mm-hmm.
have you found that? Again, we're talking about kind of global travel and cultural changes and dynamics and whatnot, but it's been a part of your story just in terms of from rural Australia to large Australia to global independence now in
Mm-hmm.
America, plus television, plus independent wrestling. It's a huge amount of different constant change and state of flux. Like, how have you found, before we kind of jump into the experience of TNA and AEW, is like, how have you found that move to America specifically? Like, geez, God love me if I ever have to move there, but like, how have you found living in America culturally, coming from maybe a more dry or satirical culture in Australia?
Surprisingly, I didn't find there's much of a culture shock. I think
Okay.
because most of the TV movies
Yeah.
you're consuming, especially in Australia, I don't know what Ireland's like,
Yeah.
but a lot of what you're consuming and you're
Uh,
seeing is based in America. So you already have an idea of how they're like
yeah.
living, what to expect. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't say there was much of a culture
Okay.
shock. I think there's more of a how do I put this? Sort of a sense of underlying anxiety
Okay.
that you have in America
Yeah.
compared to what I would have in Australia.
Okay.
Um, but at the end of the day, professional wrestling is in America, and
Mm,
that's where I need to be.
yeah.
Um, for yeah, I have to be here because that's where I have to be because that's where my goals are.
Fair. Yeah.
Um,
And outside of your kind of
living in
sorry.
you
Sorry, we cut
go,
off there
you
for a
go.
second. Apologies. Sorry, the bros for a moment. But just aside from kind of your kind of obviously that kind of cultural dynamics in America, and I'll carefully avoid that potential political hot button. But in terms of like, how have you found kind of this new exposure in American independent wrestling scene? I have a friend of mine, I trained with a guy called LJ Cleary. He's based out in Florida now, and he's one weekend he
Oh,
might be in
yeah.
Florida, the next is in California, the next is in Cleveland, and I'm like, mate, you're from Dublin. Like, how are you like getting like 8 hour flights weekly? Like, how are you finding this whole dynamic and change? Like, how have you found that kind of cultural transition, even on a wrestling front?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more opportunities.
Yeah.
There, yeah, population wise, there's just so much in America. There's so many companies, which initially can be quite difficult because
Mm,
there are so many wrestlers here.
yeah.
And I've noticed I would send batches of emails and messages to companies across America, but they either who do they know? I'm
Yeah.
just in the scene my work. Um, so I think initially it was quite cool to sort of get that foot in the door. Um, Networking was really important.
Mm,
Going to training at different schools just to show face, and all of those things to introduce myself
mm,
to the American independent scene initially. Where now I think I've had time to do that,
mm,
and especially moving to the Northeast hub. So I'm in New Jersey at the
yeah.
moment,
Mm,
and it's New Jersey, New York, um, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Massachusetts, like everywhere's driving distance
yeah.
essentially. So you can have shows Thursday to Monday if you really wanted to,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and you don't even have to get on a plane. But then you can because the airport's 20 minutes and it's a major airport. So the accessibility and the opportunities that I have being located here
Mm,
are tenfold compared to Australia.
brilliant. Yeah, no, that listen, it's amazing to kind of hear seeing you being able to capitalize on the success. Like obviously, like in any work line of work, like when you emigrate, there's obviously an element of risk attached to it in terms of like will things work out, be it like socially, culturally, whatever it is, wrestling wise, specifically to your work. But to now to like touch on like you just talked about there, you kind of being in that TNA locker room, AEW locker room. Like how do those two kind of experiences come about? First of all, are you contacted by a Tommy Dreamer in TNA? Are you contacted by a Sean Dean in AEW? Like how do those experiences come together and like what were those experiences like, just not necessarily how what you experienced on camera but just in terms of the overall experience of each of them on that day?
Yeah, it's coming from putting yourself out there. So
Yeah.
um, reaching out and knowing, like sort of networking. So I was quite fortunate the week before TNA, I was at an independent show with Tommy.
Yeah.
And I'd met him a couple times at a few independent shows, um, and then sort of retouched out the week of,
Yeah.
sent another email, and just having that communication. And
Mm,
then the opportunity came because they were in Rhode Island, so I think I
yeah.
drove 4.5 hours up from where I am
Yeah.
to sort of do it. And same thing with AEW about building those connections.
Mm,
So um, I originally came and trained at the New Jersey Creator Pro School.
okay.
So Pat Buck and Kevin Matthews run that, and have established a really positive relationship, especially with Kevin. He has definitely looked out for me while I've been in America, so I'm very thankful for that. He has a position in AEW, so there's that connection, and it's like, okay, how can we work this out?
Okay.
But it's definitely individually putting yourself in those opportunities, and like, well, not opportunities, but putting yourself in a position for those opportunities to be available to you. I think that was one lesson coming from Australia, especially, is I think there's a lot of people that wait around and hope that opportunities are going to come knocking on the door. But, you know, when you're halfway across the world, they might only come every 2 to 3 years. So are you just going to wait, like sit at home and wait and hope that maybe something will come? Or are you going to invest in yourself and put yourself in a better position for those opportunities to come? And I think like that's what I did. And I think it's working for me at the moment. So we'll keep doing that. But yeah, both going kind of the second question. I'm just rambling now. Locker rooms for both. Like I said, TNA, I have worked with basically half of that locker room. Everyone was really supportive, really friendly, open, willing to offer feedback, and it was just a really nice locker room vibe. And same with AEW, like being able to work with Stat was really cool. We had never worked together before. We'd kind of met each other like super briefly. But again, really friendly, really open, willing to work with me as well, open to giving feedback and advice. And there are key people in that locker room as well. I think AEW locker room is a bit bigger than TNA. So, but definitely I felt welcomed. I felt comfortable. And yeah, it was a very positive experience for that sort of first initial TV exposure.
Brilliant. I mean, like even just to your kind of your first part of your answer there, like it's amazing how often in life, if you put like incremental steps or incremental efforts and work towards a goal, how often things kind of tend to pan out or progress at a minimum. I always find it funny, like if you in independent wrestling, like independent wrestling's a niche bowl, right? In terms of fandom generally. And then each country has like its own independent scene. And within that you might have it even more local one. And people can be quite happy being the big fish in an extremely niche small pond. But then also give out about other people who get opportunities or are proactive and chase something. Like an LJ Cleary, he's over in America now and he's smashing it, doing unbelievably well. But he was in Europe doing the 4 or 5 shows across Europe every single weekend. So like, it's amazing how often in life I find it's people who actually want something, go out and practically get it for a sustained period, end up getting what they want. As obviously an important lesson in that. But it's also amazing to hear like how your positive experience with both companies. Was there any specific kind of follow-on conversations with either of them? Obviously, like Fightful Select and all these kind of scoopsters or whatever can hypothesize like somebody appears in a show that must.
Yeah, I don't know where that source was, because I saw it and I'm like, oh, okay.
Really? Okay.
But I was also like, because I was sitting at AEW going, this is actually perfect timing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it's all about timing. Nothing is set. But I had positive conversations with both companies. So, you know, it's all open at the moment. Like I said, I'm a hot commodity right now, and I'm kind of just riding that wave in the independent scene. I'm yeah, I'm confident something will happen. I just don't know when, and I don't know who with.
Brilliant. And obviously be aware that the amount of international talents that are getting generally huge exposure across those two companies plus WWE. WWE were really open and candid and kind of promoting the recent international tryouts they had with like 5 or 6 people from Ireland of all places. And then they had several people from all across
Yeah, I
Europe
know.
globally as well. Like, I mean, has there been any
Yeah.
interest from WWE towards you on that front? Is there any hints or conversations? 'Cause obviously, you're talking about how proactive you are and you're engaging with people across the country. Have you had any feedback to that effect?
Yeah. There's communication is open there. But like I said, everything's opened. Everything is all about timing.
Brilliant.
So wait, it's almost like a waiting game.
Yeah.
You got to stay ready, keep working. And when those opportunities come, just be ready to go, yep, let's do it.
If any companies watching this, then that is the perfect PR professional answer. So I'm sure they'll be delighted to. I don't know if you watch rugby league or rugby union in Australia, right? And like a manager gonna ask a question, gives an answer where it's like, yeah, absolutely, that could happen. So yeah, that's WWE. If they see this now, that is a perfect calling card. If anything else. Um, Lena, there's a couple of quick fun questions just to finish off, just kind of to get away from these kind of more high level existential kind of philosophical wrestling questions and travel and whatnot. A couple of quick fire ones. So, who's your favorite Australia wrestler, past or present?
Ooh, favorite. I feel like I have to say Madison Eagles. I
Okay.
think she's she has done so much for the Australian scene, but also opened so many doors for women, not only in Australia, but this whole industry. She was definitely a trailblazer, still is. Yeah, I'd have to say her. I couldn't say anyone else. I wouldn't feel right.
Your toughest experience in wrestling, be it a match, a moment, a bump, whatever it is. What's your toughest experience to date?
Um, I think mm, taking the risk of leaving the comfortability and support of
Mm,
your home,
okay.
and taking a very big bet on yourself, with minimal money, but going, this is what I want and this is what I'm going to get.
From pop culture, what would be your go-to entrance theme? Like for me, it'd be Oasis, Little by Little, but that's just because they're massive at the minute. But what would you go for?
I think the entrance music I have right now, I love it. It's very fitting. It's very me.
Brilliant.
For those
Great.
that don't know, it is Billie Eilish. You should see me in a crown, but an EDM remix version.
Brilliant. I'll leave that in the comments underneath when I post this tomorrow. So then, one wrestler you tag with if you got to face the major players, Matt Cardona and Steph Delander. If you could choose anybody from past or present.
Ooh, I feel like I was going to say someone present, but I'm going to Eddie Guerrero. He's past, present, definitely past, but he was one of my favorite growing up. And I think that tag match would be quite fun if he was in it.
Yeah, he's definitely the past. Okay, sorry, though. Lena, very last one. What's your hidden talent outside of wrestling?
Oh, hidden talent. I'm a jack of all trades.
Oh,
I can do a bit of everything, but
is that right? Okay.
um, oh, that's a tough one. I actually don't know. Like a parallel park. That's a cool talent.
It is very rare. So last one, goals for 2026.
Um, if well, this one, like my main goal for 2025 was to continue sort of that worldwide recognition
Mm,
and establishment of who Lena Kross is. If I don't have it by the end of 2025, goal for 2026 would be that full-time wrestling contract, where yeah, just being able to call myself a full-time professional wrestler.
Well, you certainly achieved your 2025 goal, and you seem to be on the cusp of achieving your 2026 goal. It's not even 2026 yet. So, Lena, I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being so transparent, giving of your energy, being good-natured, me ribbing Americans. Thank you so much for all you've done the rest so much done in the wrestling space. I wouldn't wish you the absolute best. Fans, I've no doubt to be tracking your progress everywhere possible. You're going to be popping up in independent shows all across America. You're going to be popping back up in American television before they know it. Where can fans find you online in the meantime?
Yeah, Lena underscore Kross with a K. Instagram and X are my main two platforms. Mainly Instagram, but definitely follow along, see where I'm at, see what I'm doing.
Well, I've no doubt you have more followers along for the ride very, very soon. So, Lena, thank you very, very much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
No, thank you. You too.